Hi, the Tal-Memorial is over and the winner is Boris Gelfand. Before the tournament, I think nobody would have expected it, but Gelfand showed a solid performance, didn't lose a single game and won 3 of them. And his most important win was in round 7 against Hikaru Nakamura, and I want to take a look at this game. Nakamura was white and they were both leading at this point in the tournament, so it was a crucial game. Start with e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3 and e5, the Sveshnikov defense. And this is the defense Gelfand also played in the World Championship match against Hann in 2012. So you can expect that Gelfand has a lot of knowledge about this opening. Knight db5, d6. Yeah, the following sequence of moves is kind of forced. Okay, now white is threatening to play knight d5, which is why black is pushing this knight back. And now b5, and now here are two main moves: knight d5 or how Nakamura played bishop takes f6. G takes f6, knight d5, f5. Still, everything is theory, and now the rather unusual move c4. I mean, there are a lot of moves white can play here: bishop d3, c3, e takes f5. Even the sacrifice bishop takes b5 was tried. But c4 was Nakamura's preparation, I would assume. And Gelfand replied the right way of b4. Knight c2, f takes e4, and g3. White wants to win the pawn back on e4, and there's not really much black can do about it, since, well, f5 obviously runs into queen h5 check, and bishop f5 is also not advisable because white can play on this diagonal and black gets some huge problems. So instead of bishop f5, he played castle, bishop takes e4, b8. Maybe f5 immediately was slightly stronger, and followed by e4. I could imagine maybe Gelfand was not sure what knight takes b4, but it seems that black has decent compensation here for the pawn with the bishop pair, and plays the bishop to b7, and this looks alright for black. But rook b8 is fine too. b3, f5, bishop g2, e4, opening up this long diagonal for a bishop who doesn't have a counterpart. White doesn't have a black square bishop, which makes this bishop even stronger because white cannot really exchange it. Rook b1, queen a5. Black's going for a pawn on a2, and white cannot really defend it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe white was still in its preparation, but still, everything's alright here, and both players actually played good moves. Queen takes a2, knight de3. It's not only attacking the pawn on d6, but it's also threatening to play queen d5 check and win the knight, and black cannot defend against both threats, so he played queen a5, preventing queen d5 check, and white regains the pawn. Queen takes d6, rook f6, pushing the queen out of the black field. I don't know if this is the right word. Pushing the queen back. Queen f4, and now black wants to enter an endgame, like queen e5. And Nakamura took, but maybe knight d5 would have been stronger. I like to play with queens anyway. I don't if it's not absolutely necessary, I don't like to go into endgame, and White could have played knight d5 because if black takes now on f4, he has this intermediate check on f6 and he would win in exchange. Which is why black has to move the rook, and now white can play the queen back to e3. And let's say a5. And the position is slightly preferable for white, especially since he has this really strong knight on d5. Queen takes e5, knight takes e5. Probably Nakamura thought that he could win a pawn now, pawn on b4, and he does, but black gets decent compensation. Rook f7. Maybe he should play f3 now, and well, he took. Maybe he should play f3, and the position would be roughly equal here. Well, but Nakamura, he's a fighting player and he wanted to win this game because he knew if he wins this game then he would be ahead in the tournament with one full pawn. So he took, and now black has some strong active play with his pieces. I mean, still the bishop in g7 is really strong. The bishop in g2 is kind of stuck in. It's not really active. The pawns here in f5 and e4 prevent him from becoming more involved in the game. And right now, actually, black is maybe threatening to take on c4. Exactly, he's not threatening to take on b3 because in the end of a rook takes, white could win a piece with knight e7 check, and the bishop would hang on c8. So white played knight ce3, and now Gelfand decided to prevent this check on e7, playing knight c6, but he had a strong opportunity to play a4. Cannot be taken because the rook is hanging on b1, so white has to play b4. And now bishop e6, threatening to take on d5, and if the pawn takes back, then the pawn on b4 is hanging. If the knight takes back, then the pawn on c4 is hanging. If white plays rook bd1, then black can further push the pawn, and this gets really annoying here for white, and black is already clearly better. Also, after knight c6, position is more pleasant for black. White played c5. Rook takes b3. Now he regained the pawn. Knight b6. Rook takes b1. Rook takes b1. Bishop e6. And we will see this constellation a lot in the game where the bishop is kind of dominating the knight. This is the rule of the two square difference between bishop and knight, and sometimes the knight is dominating the bishop, but in this case it's clear the bishop who's taking away squares from the knight. And right now he can't move anyway because the rook is hanging on b1. So Nakamura plays bishop f1, a good move to bring the bishop into play. Bishop d4, rook b5, and now there's always this possibility of taking on c5, but right now it's not strong yet because white could regain the pawn on f5. But black has time, and the white pieces are kind of bound now here. So Nakamura played knight c4, knight e to c4, and now a strong move by Gelfand, king g7, avoiding to be checked on d6. And it was important to play the king here, since, for example, if he plays king e7, then white could take on a5 and equalize. Because the king on g7, he could play knight a7 now, which is not possible now because of knight d5 check and the rook is hanging. And then white would just equalize with knight takes a5. But here it's not possible anymore. And if white plays the knight back, black obviously has improved his position by moving forward his king. So Nakamura played knight d6, but probably should have played the knight back to e3, because now this move allows... oh wait, first black played king f6, again protecting pawn. Now bishop takes e5 is threatening and just winning the pawn. So Nakamura plays knight a4, protecting a pawn on c5 and offering the rook exchange. But now Gelfand played a strong move e3, and as we will see, suddenly the white king is under attack. So if white cannot take on b8 because intermediate check, this way it takes, bishop takes check, king g2, bishop d5 check, king has to go to h3, and now black exchanges. And there's not much material left, only 3 pawns on each side, but the white king is under attack, and this makes the difference here. Knight e5. Now the simple idea of black is to play knight g4 and then knight f2 check, and soon the white king is going to be mated. So white has to do something. All his pieces are at the queen's side, so he tries to get them back into play. Knight c3. Bishop f3. Still, again we see this idea dominating. Maybe instead of knight c3, knight b6 was possible, but also then bishop e6, knight e8 check. Again we have this 2 square difference. King g5, knight c7, and again bishop f7. And also here black is clearly better, or maybe winning again. Okay, knight c3, bishop f3, again dominating a knight. And well, Nakamura couldn't really come up with a defense against knight g4 followed by knight f2, king h4, bishop g5, checkmate. So he played bishop e2, but this just doesn't work. So bishop takes e2, knight d5. Yeah, if white takes back, and he just loses the pawn, and he doesn't really have a chance against this pass pawn here. This is clear. So knight d5 check, king g5, knight takes e3, and it seems white is fine, but Gelfand had calculated this line, and he played knight g4, and the white king is the problem here. Yeah, white cannot take, play king g2, he cannot take because of mate, and what else can he do? He cannot take on f5. What happens if he takes knight d takes f5? Oh, that's nice. Bishop f3, a nice quiet move, and the only defense against knight f2 is to take on g4, and then black also just wins the piece. Well, it's a really nice combination by Gelfand. So Nakamura tried king g2, and he hoped for this double attack here, but Gelfand had also seen this, and he played knight c4, and Nakamura resigned because the pawn endgame is completely hopeless here. Black will get the pawn and then just walk his king over to a king set here, attack these pawns, and white has to take care of the pawn on a5, and he has no chance, pretty much. Even though Nakamura had a slight advantage out of the opening, Gelfand played really strong. I mean, there was no mistake really in the whole game for Gelfand. This is a really impressive performance, and then in the end, nice mating motives. It seems that Gelfand just calculated the lines better in the end and didn't really give Nakamura a chance. A really nice handling of the endgame. So Gelfand is the winner, and I think it was an awesome tournament. You know, lots of surprises. Kramnik and Anand at the end of the field is no one would have expected it. Thanks for watching, and I see you at the next tournament. Maybe I'm going to analyze one of my games once again. It's been a while. See you.